Welcome to A Better HR Business, the podcast that looks at how HR consultants and HR tech firms grow their businesses and how they help their employers to get the best out of their people. Remember, for show notes and downloads, go to www.getmorehrclients.com/podcast. That's getmorehrclients.com/podcast. Okay, let's get started.
Hello, thanks for joining me today. Great to have you along. Today I want to talk to you about pre-conversion events. And that sounds a bit funny or strange, whatever, but a lot of HR businesses do a lot of, let's call it shallow marketing. So that's LinkedIn posts or emails, maybe some messaging and stuff, which is at that surface level where you're trying to reach out, find your potential audience, your potential market, so they know who you are. And then the idea is they then go and book a sales call and have a demo or have a meeting about your services. And the problem is that either you don't get enough of those sales calls, or if you do, they're really hard work. You're trying to convince them they don't know what you do, or they might have lots of objections, or no, we do this differently, or there are other options. And yeah, it can be really hard work, or you just don't get enough. So there's not that volume to be able to convert some of those into proposals or to new customers, new clients. And so what I like you to think about is pre-conversion events, or another way to call it would be chunky marketing. And that's just something a little bit more immersive, something that sends them deeper into your product or service area through a variety of ways. And so the most common ones are things like live high engagement pre-conversion events. So workshops, roundtables, live audits, group sessions. So for instance, a workshop, that's where you bring them in physically into a room, into a workshop space, hotel, whatever it may be. And yeah, you'll spend the day or half a day or some hours, whatever, working through a particular topic. There's one HR tech company I know that just uses this beautifully, and they bring in half the audience would be their existing customer base. And then they get to bring in a friend, another company. So they have a very committed, engaged, positive audience in that 50% who are customers. And then the others who are coming along, they're not customers yet, but you've got a whole bunch of people, they're very pleased with the product and service that they've bought. And so they will do the convincing for them. Right. So it's very easy sales sort of process, but it does have to be a very effective workshop. And so that's where they're actually doing process mapping and thinking about how they fix a particular HR problem. Yes, using their software, but it's not solved that way. It's around how do we sort this problem, and whether you use our platform or not, that's up to you. But realistically, with half the audience is existing customers, say, well, you could do it manually or in using Excel or old ways, but if you use this platform, it's just so much easier, so much better. So you can imagine the kind of conversion rates. And these are high-end deal sizes. It's a lot of effort to get a whole bunch of people into a room and feed them and just get them there in the first place. But obviously that can have a really big payoff if you're talking big customer types, big corporates. Roundtables, similar sort of thing. And you get some companies, that's all they do. They either attend roundtables or they sponsor them. And there are companies that hold roundtables and then they can get HR vendor companies to sponsor them. So you manage a table, you're the facilitator, you facilitate the discussion. And they're not existing customers or clients. They would be people you haven't met, companies you haven't met. So that's obviously a big sales thing. So those are live high engagement things. So they're high effort. Sometimes they can be high cost, but if you have a really big deal size and super powerful stuff. Structured experiences, they're things like challenges, bootcamps, short programs. We all know what challenges and bootcamps are. You might have your 3-day bootcamp, your 5-day challenge, something like that. You see that in the B2C side of things, but you can do it through the B2B world as well. And you just basically pick a topic, a single problem perhaps, and then you break it down into 3-5 equal steps. And so day 1, we're going to do this, and day 2. So you might be how to improve your onboarding process and define your outcomes, your goals, etc. And then day 2 would be review the processes and steps you've already got, and then how can you improve them, carrying on like that. And if you structure it, then they can be really effective. People love it. They're getting something practical out of it. You can either be free or paid, but they'll be very engaged people. And by the end, They'll know all about you, whoever the facilitator is or the company. They'll know about you, the people involved. They'll have a lot higher emotional engagement in you and your company. So far more likely to then, for instance, book a sales call or to do that demo or to ask for a proposal or ask for them to sign up to your product or service. So yeah, the same with mini workshops, things like that. On demand, but immersive. So you've got mini courses, guided plans, recorded workshops. The way I typically like to run that is I'll run a live workshop, get a group of people there. That's either free or paid again, but again, it's on a specific topic and you'll get people there and then you can just record it and rerun it. But again, that'll typically be online, so it's not as powerful as having people in a room discussing things, but it's still immersive, super high value. They'll really enjoy the experience and learn stuff, and especially if you give them resources or whatever, templates, whatever it may be. But yeah, very good way of then upselling or getting them to have a conversation, a sales conversation or demos, etc. Other ways, the authority, the borrowed trust approach, such as guest podcasting. So that's really where that's more around exposure, but you could be speaking on other podcasts, other shows. Partner webinars, I do that a lot for companies in the HR space where I team up companies. So we double the audience size. We have 2 different speakers, sometimes 3 or 4 different speakers if it's a panel discussion. So that way you've got 2, 3, 4 different organizations promoting the one event, which obviously brings more people to that event. So everyone wins. They're all exposing their business and the people from those businesses to the audience, the HR audience. So that's a great way of expanding your network. But yeah, they're learning about you, your services subtly. You don't want to be in their face doing a heavy sales pitch if it's not what that's about. But yeah, that can be really powerful. And then like the mini courses or the workshops, you can then record them, just have them on demand. You can run ads to them. But again, because it's immersive, it's not just an ebook or a LinkedIn post or an email. They're really learning from a person and seeing the discussion. Really effective. And then you can have some social proof driven pre-conversion event types, such as the client case study breakdowns, what we did sessions. So they might a bit like a workshop really, but what we did, case study stuff, customer panels, very effective. The customer panel types, they're harder to get a big audience to because they're further down that sales process, further down that sales pipeline. It's around, we've got this HR issue, we're looking at 3 vendors now, we've kind of narrowed it down. Those are the people who would attend one of those customer panels, not someone who's starting that process. So the numbers will be smaller, but the likelihood of a conversion or a sale will be much higher because they're further down that process. So all sorts of different ways you can do it. But the idea is that it's chunky. It's a bit more involved, a bit more immersive. You're getting them thinking, that you're getting them learning from you, experiencing you, your product, your expertise, the people in your business. They're learning from others. Far more engaging and emotional almost. And so, yeah, that can boost the number of sales calls and demos, but also can actually make them easier and convert better. So in summary, I would say that if sales calls feel hard or you're not getting enough of them, first, always check your offer. You're actually putting the right offer out there. If it's not something that the market doesn't want, then no number of different pre-conversion events are going to help. But if you've checked that and you're in the ballpark, then look at the lead-ins. Say, are you helping them understand the problem clearly? Are you challenging their current thinking? Are you showing them a better way? Are you building trust before the call? And are there beliefs that you need to change or objections that you need to change or handle? Otherwise, the sales call or the demo just has too much work to do. And so you can often solve that by having this chunky pre-conversion event in front of it. And the way you run that, you can just there's all the different methods out there. So there's no best method. It's depending on your situation and needs, budget, etc. Try one, work it a few times, make some improvements. Don't just abandon something if it doesn't work out, but tweak it. And if that works, scale it up or perhaps add another one in there. So there's all these different methods. Different methods will be more attractive to different people on different businesses. So sometimes having a little menu of them or a range of those running can greatly increase the number of sales calls and demos and make those calls go much easier and convert better. So just something to think about. If you're not getting the kind of business or the revenue growth you're looking for, take a look at pre-conversion events. All right, I'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us today on A Better HR Business, the podcast that explores the world of HR consulting and HR tech businesses. For show notes and downloads, go to www.getmorehrclients.com/podcast. That's getmorehrclients.com/podcast. Remember to subscribe and share the show with any friends who are busy growing a HR business. Thanks, and see you next time.